Lin Feng had barely stepped out of the forest when a tall blonde threw him face first into a still warm puddle, tied him up, and accused him of 3 crimes at once. Then she promised to torture him until he confessed to a fabricated conspiracy, after which she would send him to the gallows. Silver was sure she had caught a nameless vagrant, unaware that she had just arrested the lawful owner of all this land. A few minutes earlier, Lin Feng had finally reached the highest mountain city in the world. So this is my domain, North Wind. Let's see what my dear subjects are doing. Full of anticipation, Lin Feng walked out of the forest and immediately saw a tall young blonde nearby. The young woman went into the bushes and squatted down to relieve herself. Lin Feng hurriedly turned away, not wanting to see anything unnecessary, and looked at the low, half-ruined buildings ahead. Even before he arrived, he had been warned that North Wind was an undeveloped land inhabited by barbarians. Now he saw that the rumors had not lied. What savages! They have no shame at all. At least put on some pants. The blonde heard his voice and spun around. What the hell? Where did you come from? She instantly grabbed Lin Feng, threw him over her shoulder, and twisted his arm behind his back. He fell straight into the warm puddle left on the ground. Pinning him to the ground, the blonde announced that her name was Silver Nightsong and that she was responsible for maintaining order in Frost. She then formally charged Lin Feng with assault, harassment, and voyeurism. Silver tied the prisoner with rope, pulled the knot tight, put a black sack over his head, and drove him toward the town. This woman was very strong. Her long, powerful legs contained enough strength that she could probably crush a watermelon between them. The lines of her abs were clearly visible. Her toned body made it obvious that Silver trained a lot and fought often. On Earth, a tall fitness beauty like her, nearly 6 feet tall, could post a short TikTok video in leggings and immediately attract a crowd of men calling her mommy. But now she walked behind Lin Feng, kicking him from time to time and promising to torment him thoroughly before he died. The scene reminded Lin Feng of his childhood, when his father would drag him out of an internet cafe and drive him home, cursing and kicking him every few steps along the way. So you can torture people and decide for yourself who lives and who dies? Lin Feng frowned. An ordinary city guard has no right to pass sentences. You have no papers. To me, you're just a nameless vagrant, Silver replied coldly. If I kill you, no one will say a word. In Frost, I am the law. Lin Feng restrained his irritation and stopped arguing. Every kick he received now would come back to Silver like a boomerang in the future. Still, her mistake was understandable. To reach North Wind from the capital of the Sky Eagle Empire, Lin Feng had been forced to cross mountains and travel through lands inhabited by all kinds of monsters. After such a journey, his clothes had turned into rags, and he really did look like a beggar. Lin Feng had made this entire journey for the Lord system, which could activate only after he obtained territory that legally and completely belonged to him. Now the system had recognized North Wind as his domain and assigned the territory level 1. For now, Lin Feng had access to only a few basic structures: a soldier recruitment center, a farm, a wall, a prison, and a watchtower. But first he needed to lay the foundation for the Lord's residence. After that, the system would show detailed information about his domain. Level 1, the system's capabilities looked rather modest. Lin Feng had already looked through the sections that were still unavailable and seen what awaited him once the territory developed. By developing technology, he would eventually be able to build ships capable of destroying entire planets and weapons that could shatter stars. And with magic, he would be able to summon real gods into his domain. For example, a seductive goddess of life and reproduction, or a dark-skinned, short-haired goddess of war with large breasts. When the sack was removed from Lin Feng's head, he was already in a dark, damp cell. Silver threw on her official cloak, stood on the other side of the bars, and began showing the prisoner her torture tools. First, she took out a small pair of pincers and a knife with a curved hook. Then she pulled out her favorite tool, a small metal roller covered in rusty spikes. With unhealthy pleasure, Silver explained that even the most steadfast holy knights could not endure its use. Stroking the rusty spikes, the young woman smiled grimly. It was clear that she did not merely intimidate prisoners. She truly enjoyed causing people pain. Lin Feng noted that the place was small, but it had plenty of ways to break people. Even the Church Inquisition used roughly the same methods. Silver offered the prisoner a choice between two options. You can experience all my tools for yourself and die in agony. Or you can agree to cooperate, avoid torture, get a proper meal, and calmly go to the gallows. Silver walked right up to the bars, reached between them, grabbed Lin Feng by the chin, and forced him to raise his head. Then she patted his cheek several times. And what exactly am I supposed to cooperate with you on? It turned out that Silver had already prepared a confession for him. You must identify yourself as one of the leading members of an enemy organization called the Ghost Wolf Brotherhood. Your organization was preparing an attack on Frost, and you came to the city to scout the situation. And I, the brave Silver, exposed your plan and arrested you. You voluntarily confessed to every crime and agreed to accept punishment by hanging. Taking the hooked knife in one hand and the spiked roller in the other, she smiled grimly. Lin Feng finally understood why Silver had dragged him to prison. You're going to torture an innocent man into confessing to a fabricated crime so you can claim another achievement for yourself? This woman truly intended to use a random vagrant for her own gain. She did not even try to hide how cruel she was. But Silver had made one serious mistake. The nameless vagrant she planned to hang for another reward was the new Lord of North Wind. And very soon she would learn who really was the law here. Silver had clearly forced innocent people to confess to fabricated crimes before. She had an entire set of threats and convincing phrases prepared. Even without using torture tools, she could make a person believe resistance was useless and confession was the only way out. Lin Feng had to admit that her methods truly worked. If he had not been the lawful Lord of North Wind, he might already have broken down and agreed to all her demands. At least your pathetic life will end up being useful. Consider it a great honor. Silver walked up to the bars and gripped them tightly with both hands. Staring intently at the prisoner, she gave him a strange smile. An unhealthy flush appeared on her cheeks. You have one last chance. Agree to cooperate, and you'll avoid torture and get a proper meal before you die. Refuse, and you'll regret it. However, Lin Feng did not look frightened at all. The problem is that your tools don't scare me. Instead of wasting your energy, you should use something I'm actually afraid of against me. Silver immediately became interested. And what are you afraid of? What scares me most is being stepped on by a tall woman like you. You're about 5 feet 11 inches tall, and if you do it barefoot, I'll probably die of fear. Silver immediately realized that the prisoner was mocking her. You want to play games with me? Then I'll quickly teach you some manners. She grabbed a heavy cleaver from the table, knocked down the cell door with one blow, and dragged Lin Feng outside. Silver laid him face down on the table, twisted his arm behind his back, and pressed him firmly against the tabletop. She tapped the cleaver beside his palm, making it clear that she was no longer joking. But before Silver could do anything, a frightened male shout came from the entrance. Stop, Silver! Stop immediately! A very fat man in respectable clothes ran into the dungeon. He wore a monocle over one eye and held a massive cane in his hand. You brainless fool! Do you even understand who you arrested? The man ran up to Silver and struck her thigh with his cane as hard as he could. The cane was cast from solid iron. A blow like that could have shattered an ordinary person's bone, but Silver only groaned in pain. The man who had arrived was named Heisher Nightsong. He was Silver's biological father and the mayor of Frost. In practice, the entire town was under their family's control. Heisher held the position of mayor, his daughter was responsible for enforcing the law, and his son collected taxes. Thus, the Nightsong family controlled the local government, the guards, and the town's money all at once. Silver did not understand why her father was so furious. I caught one of the leading members of the Ghost Wolf Brotherhood. The new lord will arrive soon, so I decided to perform some great deed in advance. Then he'll see how useful we are and value the Nightsong family more. Heisher looked at the prisoner lying on the table. His voice trembled. Didn't it cross your mind, even for a second? The mayor's legs gave way, and his enormous body slowly sank to the floor. That the man you arrested is the new lord? Silver turned pale when she heard this. What? That's impossible. How did you even figure that out? She released the prisoner, and Lin Feng fell to the floor beside the table. Silver felt her legs begin to tremble and her vision blur. She staggered backward, tripped over Lin Feng lying behind her, and fell down with him. Meanwhile, Haishir explained that a group of knights had arrived in Frost. They were looking for the new lord and had begun questioning the locals. The townspeople said they had seen Silver lead a man with a black sack over his head into the dungeon. After he finished speaking, the mayor rolled his eyes and lost consciousness. Silver's entire body began trembling with fear. A few seconds later, she forced herself to smile and looked at Lin Feng. Are you really the new lord? Yes, I am. Now get off me immediately. Trying to free himself, Lin Feng began pushing Silver away and struck her several times with his elbow in the upper part of her body. When the young woman finally got up, he jumped to his feet and angrily pointed at her. Treacherous criminal. You're dead. At the same time, Lin Feng involuntarily noted that the soft curves of Silver's figure cushioned the blows well. The holy knights Lin Feng had hired soon reached the dungeon. After they appeared, the Nightsong family did not even try to resist. Any one of the knights in full armor could have destroyed all of Frost alone. Silver had managed to capture Lin Feng only because he had decided to separate from his guards for a short time and inspect his domain on his own while disguised as an ordinary traveler. The holy knights placed a magical seal of holy light on Silver, completely depriving her of her strength. After that, the former guard was tightly bound and left to await the new lord's decision. While Lin Feng dealt with Silver, her father and brother gathered their families and hurriedly left Frost. Lin Feng decided not to send anyone after them. Right now, activating the system and beginning the territory's development was much more important to him. After inspecting Frost, he confirmed that the town was in terrible condition. There was only one main street here, lined with dilapidated houses. The Nightsong family estate, located in the middle of the street, was considered the most respectable building. But even it was just a poorly built two-story wooden house. Lord Baron, what should we do with this woman? One of the guards asked. Build a gallows, read her crimes aloud before the residents, and hang her publicly. Her public execution will also show the people of Frost that the Nightsong family's rule has ended. From now on, the new lord will maintain order in the town. After hearing the new lord's decision, Silver began struggling desperately and tried to move closer to him. The knights had already gagged her with a piece of cloth, so the young woman could make only muffled sounds. While the knights built the gallows, Lin Feng took a small black crystal from his clothes. The unusual object constantly changed its state, becoming solid one moment and resembling thick black mist the next. Following the system's instructions, Lin Feng placed the crystal on the ground. A powerful information pulse burst from it. It instantly covered Frost and then spread throughout the entire territory of North Wind. The system studied the domain and transmitted the gathered information directly into Lin Feng's mind. North Wind was a level 1 territory covering about 129 square miles. Only 486 people lived there. The population was divided among 3 settlements: Frost, Rusty Ship Village, and Shark Village. The first thing Lin Feng could build was the so-called Altar of Heroes, a special structure that summoned powerful assistants, each of whom possessed a unique talent. Lin Feng was about to study the materials required for construction when a desperate shout came from behind him. Silver had managed to spit out the cloth that had been used to gag her. Lord Baron, you can't hang me. Before Lin Feng could reply, the young woman shouted, I'm still a virgin. Under the laws of the Empire, you have no right to send me to the gallows. What? Lin Feng spun around, unable to believe his ears. Silver was telling the truth. Such a law really did exist in the Empire. Its official name was the Imperial Population and Birth Rate Protection Act. Under this law, a virgin could not be sentenced to death unless she had committed one of the gravest crimes: treason, mass murder, blasphemy, or sacrifice to demons. However, it was not the existence of this law that surprised Lin Feng. Silver looked almost 30. She looked like a mature woman. Could she really still be a virgin? If you don't believe me, you can check for yourself. I really am telling the truth, Silver exclaimed. Should we continue building the gallows, Lord Baron? The Knight Commander asked. Of course. This woman is willing to say anything to save her life. I suspect she's a succubus in disguise. Let's try to hang her. If she doesn't die, then she's definitely a succubus. Lin Feng casually waved his hand. The only advantage of such a remote domain was that imperial laws did not have to be taken too seriously here. As long as the local lord did not openly rebel, no one cared about him. You're ignoring the laws of the empire. I'll file a complaint against you in the capital. I'll go all the way to the capital. Silver shouted desperately as she continued to struggle. Complain wherever you want. Lin Feng stopped paying attention to her and returned to studying the system information. Building the Altar of Heroes required 50 units each of stone and wood, as well as one object that held the power of some deity. The deity determined what kind of heroes the altar would summon more often. An object containing the power of faith. Looking around, Lin Feng noticed that the Knight Commander wore a cross around his neck, the symbol of the Church of Holy Light. Continuing his search, Lin Feng found a small statue of a Valkyrie in the Nightsong family's house. In the townspeople's homes, Lin Feng found 4 more statues. They depicted the god of life, the god of trade, the god of nature, and the mother of the Highland elves. The last 2 deities belonged to the elven religion. Noticing one of these statues in the grocery store owner's house, Lin Feng asked with a smile, "Why do you worship an elven deity? Are you a traitor to humanity?" "My lord, I haven't done anything wrong." The store owner hurriedly defended himself. He explained that a tribe of northern elves lived north of Frost. Sometimes the elves came to town to trade. They brought magical seeds and ore, and received salt, cloth, and iron pots in return. The elves did not fight the empire or support its enemies, so they were allowed to enter imperial lands. We put up this statue for them as well. After all, they're important customers of ours. Lin Feng raised his head and carefully examined the statue of the mother of the Highland elves. Her breasts are rather large. Does the statue at least look like the original? The store owner immediately understood what Lin Feng wanted to know. "My lord, the statue depicts their appearance quite accurately. Adult Highland elves usually grow taller than 6.5 feet, and their figures are impossible to describe in words. Their legs are longer than my entire life, and their bodies give off a pleasant, cool fragrance." Then the man gave him a conspiratorial smile. "Besides, Northern elf women are allowed to marry members of other races." Lin Feng waved his hand, ignoring the store owner's lustful smile. Lin Feng learned a lot of useful information from the conversation. Like humans, elves were divided into different peoples. Some of them had created powerful magical empires that occupied vast territories. But the northern elves living near Frost were a small and underdeveloped tribe. They did not know how to produce salt or make iron goods, so they bought them from humans. Lin Feng decided that North Wind should begin trading with them. After gathering objects with the power of faith, Lin Feng began searching for wood and stone for construction. At first, he wanted to send the residents of Frost to cut down trees and quarry stone, but almost none of the necessary resources remained near the town. A large forest lay far to the north. However, monsters lived there and bandits hid there. Only strong Highland elf women could safely cross those lands. Ordinary residents of Frost would die there. Then the building materials would have to be obtained by dismantling old houses. Lin Feng's gaze stopped on the Nightsong family's large 2-story house. After gathering the residents of Frost, Lin Feng announced that he would rid North Wind of those who had profited from ordinary people for years. He promised that the townspeople's lives would now change for the better. The Nightsong family had never helped Frost, so the residents happily tore down their house. More than 200 people worked all morning. By noon, only an empty lot remained where the largest 2-story wooden house in town had stood. After the demolition, Lin Feng received 320 units of wood and 80 units of stone. The system offered Lin Feng the option to build a level 1 altar of heroes. This required spending 50 units of wood, 50 units of stone, and 6 objects containing the power of faith. Normally, construction would have taken 3 days, but Lin Feng had one opportunity to accelerate the process with the system, and he used it immediately. After that, dozens of translucent builder spirits appeared from the foundation of the Lord's residence. Holding various tools, they began constructing the altar of heroes so quickly that the human eye could not follow their movements. Construction was completed in less than 3 minutes. A statue of a knight holding a long sword now towered over the empty lot, the altar of heroes. The residents of Frost stared at it in astonishment. No one had expected anything like this from the young aristocrat, whom they had thought weak and spoiled. They had been certain that he would not last a month here. The harsh northern winds and monsters would quickly break him. No one had expected the handsome young lord to be a powerful mage. The knights were more shocked than anyone. If Lin Feng was this powerful, why had he hired them to protect him? A voice sounded in Lin Feng's head. Level 1 Altar of Heroes successfully constructed. You may now recruit 2 heroes who will become your assistants. 2 heroes have been discovered in the lands of North Wind. The first is Jayan Mightwine, 45 years old, commander of a knightly order, level 3 Knight of Retribution. Jayan fights with a heavy sword and holy light magic. His unique talent is prayer, which briefly protects him from all harmful effects. Recruitment price: 120 gold coins per month. A church of holy light must be built within 3 months. 120 gold coins a month? Lin Feng thought he had read the stated amount incorrectly. The Sky Eagle Empire was the strongest nation, and its gold coins were valued throughout the world at more than the gold itself. A house in a wealthy district of the imperial capital cost only a few hundred gold coins. This meant that Jayan could earn enough for his own home in the capital after only 6 months of service. At the same time, Lin Feng himself had paid only 3,000 gold coins for North Wind and the title of Baron. Still, the high pay was justified. Jayan held a high government position. Luring such a person to a backwater domain at the edge of the empire required an enormous salary. But a level 3 Knight of Retribution will protect North Wind and help capture new sources of resources. Then I'll finally learn how much gold these lands can bring in. Nodding with satisfaction, Lin Feng opened the domain's general panel. North Wind, level 1 territory. Population: 486. Prosperity: 32. Uncollected funds discovered in the Nightsong family's basement: 12 gold, 646 silver, and 5,720 copper coins. Also stored there are 270 units of wood, 30 units of stone, and enough food for 120 people for 1 day. Special structures: Altar of Heroes. Recruited heroes: none. Assessment: a disgraceful stain on the underwear of the Sky Eagle Empire. Requirements for advancing to the next level: accumulate 5,000 prosperity points, construct 10 types of special structures, upgrade the Altar of Heroes to level 2, and recruit 5 heroes. Lin Feng did not even look at what abilities would become available after reaching level 2 or how many resources the upgrade would require. As soon as he saw that only 12 gold coins remained in the treasury, he immediately closed the system page. Come to think of it, a level 3 Knight of Retribution was not all that powerful. This was how Lin Feng tried to comfort himself before moving on to the second candidate. Silver Nightsong, 19 years old. Level 1 Elite Hero. Skilled in hand-to-hand combat and blood magic. The more she or her opponent suffers, the more power Silver gains. The effect can stack up to 5 times. Recruitment condition: forgive her crimes. No payment required. After recruiting her, you will be able to build a militia camp and recruit militiamen, tax guards, and city patrolmen. Assessment: an inexperienced follower of the goddess of war. Free, beautiful, and she also has unusual interests. Pay attention to her talent. 19 years old? Lin Feng was shocked. This tall, golden-haired Amazon, nearly 6 feet tall, was only 19? Silver looked much older, but in reality, she was still very young. I still want to get that 45-year-old man, but I can't afford him. I'll have to settle for the 19-year-old beauty. After thinking for a moment, Lin Feng made his decision. Right now, Lin Feng could immediately form a contract with Jaein or Silver because both were already in Northwind. There was no need to use the Altar of Heroes summoning function. An ordinary summoning did not transport a hero directly to the altar. The system showed Lin Feng several suitable people nearby. After he made his choice, the system guided that person to Northwind. Once they arrived, Lin Feng could fulfill their conditions and recruit them into his service. The entire process took from 1 week to 1 month. But the nightly order Lin Feng had hired was supposed to leave Northwind in less than 7 days. Therefore, he could not wait for an ordinary summoning. Then Lin Feng would be left without a single loyal soldier. Therefore, he needed to create his own guard within the next 7 days. Otherwise, any furious peasant could stab the new baron with an ordinary manure pitchfork. Time's up. Carry out the sentence. The knight appointed as executioner pulled the lever. The trapdoor opened, and Silver fell through it. Even at the last moment, Silver continued staring furiously at Lin Feng with her blue eyes. It seemed as though she was trying to memorize his face forever so that after death, she could sell her soul to a demon and take the man who had wronged her with her at any cost. Damn it! My cheap heroine! Lin Feng instantly opened the system's construction page and moved 3 units of stone directly beneath Silver's feet. The support that appeared took Silver's weight and prevented her from falling. That was how Lin Feng saved the young woman. The residents and knights froze in confusion. An enormous stone block had appeared out of nowhere at the new lord's mere will. He had not even needed to utter a spell. A legendary mage. Lin Feng was definitely a great mage of legendary rank. The knight commander, Jaein, became completely convinced of this. I'm saved. I didn't die. Silver breathed heavily. Her gaze toward Lin Feng gradually softened. She now resembled an offended dog whose eyes showed both obedience and displeasure. Meanwhile, the young woman continued cursing to herself. Is this young great mage completely sick in the head? If he's so powerful, why did he let me arrest him at all? Does he like games in dungeons? He could have just said so. I definitely would have played along. I know so many different techniques, and I have plenty of tools. Why put on this show? I already wet myself in fear. He needs to get me down from here immediately. How am I supposed to show my face to the people of Frost now? What's happening? Are we no longer going to execute her? Should we pull Lady Silver out? Several knights began talking quietly among themselves, then looked at Lin Feng at the same time. To tell the truth, they did not want to execute Silver at all. All of them had come from the imperial capital and had seen many beautiful women from all over the world, including members of non-human races. Dragon women, elf women, girls with animal ears. However, Silver had one advantage that was hard to ignore. She had never been intimate with anyone before. Her inexperience involuntarily attracted men. Each one wanted to be her one and only. In short, it would be a pity to kill such a beauty. Still, the knights quickly realized that even after Silver was pardoned, none of them would get anything. A powerful mage lord would surely take such a beautiful young woman for himself. Sigh! The knights sighed with envy. They were filled with conflicting feelings. Pull her out, Lin Feng finally ordered. Take her back to the dungeon. I'll deal with her when I return. Although Lin Feng had already decided to sign a contract with Silver, he understood perfectly what kind of person she was. This woman was truly cruel and corrupt. First, he needed to subdue her pride. Otherwise, she would refuse to obey him in the future. After canceling the execution, Lin Feng immediately conducted a census in Frost. He wanted to know how many people lived in his domain and how many of them were workers, children, and elderly people. His contract with the knights was still in effect, so he decided to make good use of the remaining time by inspecting all of Northwind under their protection. The domain turned out to be small, could be crossed on horseback in a day. First, Lin Feng went to the northern coast, where the 2 fishing villages, Rusty Ship and Shark, were located. Fewer than 100 people lived in each one. The local fishermen went out to sea in old wooden boats and stayed close to shore. Sometimes they caught expensive seafood delicacies. Then the catch was packed in ice, taken to Frost, and sold to the Nightsong family for a few miserable copper coins. The fishermen did not care who ruled North Wind now. They were concerned with only one thing: whether the new lord would buy their valuable catch and reduce the tax on dried fish. Lin Feng's answer exceeded all expectations. I'm abolishing taxes for both villages. From now on, you don't have to pay anything at all. For more than 100 years, the Nightsong family had squeezed the residents for their last coins, yet had accumulated only 12 gold coins. Taxes from a few dozen impoverished fishermen brought in almost nothing. But abolishing them could quickly win the people's trust. The fishermen instantly surrounded the new lord. What a wise decision, my lord. Long live the lord. I caught an enormous fish today. Take it. My lord. My daughter is smart and hardworking. She used to serve as a maid for the Nightsongs, and now she's ready to serve you. Thanks, gifts and offers came from all sides. Lin Feng left the villages with a smile. He had to admit that being a ruler truly felt good. When many people rejoiced over a single decision of yours and praised you, your mood improved noticeably. After his visit to the fishing villages, the census was completed, and the system updated the information about his domain. Total population of North Wind, 486. Men between the ages of 18 and 35, 235. Women between the ages of 18 and 35, 67. Then Lin Feng's personal notes appeared. Anna, 18 years old, unmarried daughter of a fisherman, height, 5 feet 3 inches, tanned and freckled, with a curvy figure, but has lost half her teeth because of raw fish. Rating, 4 points. Hong, 28 years old, widow, weaves fishing nets. Height, 5 feet 7 inches, beautiful face, calloused hands, and a persistent smell of an unwashed body. Rating, 5 points. Leah, 23 years old, married wife of a shopkeeper, pleasant face, mature figure, blind in one eye. Rating, 6 points. And these were the most attractive women Lin Feng had met all day. He would not have given any of the others even 3 points. He had not yet seen every woman in North Wind, but the overall picture already looked hopeless. Poor, barren land could not grow beautiful flowers. It was a good thing he had not allowed Silver to be hanged. Otherwise, when choosing a maid for himself, Lin Feng would have been forced to decide between rotten teeth, smelly armpits, and a missing eye. Silver truly was a cruel and corrupt woman. But she was also tall, long-legged, and had a beautiful figure. Now I understand why everyone in the capital looked at me with such sympathy when they learned that I had received North Wind. Continuing on horseback, Lin Feng mentally recorded new information about the population in the system. He was interested not only in women of a suitable age, but also in healthy men who could be turned into farmers, builders, and future soldiers. Lord Baron, the sun is already setting, Jayan said to him. Are we returning to Frost? Not yet. The map shows another northern watchpost near the border with the great forest of Northrend. Lin Feng also wanted to return to town and begin re-educating the soft and pleasantly scented criminal, Silver. However, the northern watchpost was the most important goal of this trip. The future of all North Wind depended on it. The enormous forest of Northrend was rich in resources, but it was also crawling with monsters and bandits. It was the only available source of the wood and stone needed to develop the domain. By evening, Lin Feng and the knights reached the northern border. But when they saw the watchpost, everyone stopped and stared ahead in disbelief. The small post resembled a forester's cabin. It had a wooden hut, a fenced yard, and a tall observation tower. The sentry on duty in the tower was supposed to watch the great forest. In case of danger, he rang an enormous bell to warn the residents of Frost. This bell was the only magical object in all of North Wind, so its ringing could be heard from a great distance. However, the sentry was nowhere to be seen. Instead, A young woman covered only by large leaves stood near the post. Facing the sunset, she folded her hands in prayer. Holy light enveloped her body, making her look like the pure and innocent Eve from the Garden of Eden. But an entire crowd of monsters prayed behind her. Green-skinned goblins, kobolds, flower fairies, and even an enormous two-headed ogre. Every creature repeated the young woman's movements, and their bodies radiated the same sacred glow. There was no doubt. The god of holy light had accepted the monster's faith and granted them his power. Before Lin Feng could say anything, Jayan's eyes became bloodshot. The scene drove him into a rage. Fucking heretics. Heretics. Unforgivable heretics. Blasphemy. This is blatant blasphemy. In the name of holy light. Mount up. Kill them all. Jayan put on his heavy helmet, lowered his visor, and jumped into the saddle in a single motion. Then he pulled an enormous knight's sword, almost as tall as a person, from his back. Watching the holy knights put on their armor, draw their swords, and leap onto their horses, Lin Feng did not even try to stop them. He understood perfectly well that it was impossible. To the knights, the woman in leaves had committed monstrous sacrilege. No one knew whether the god of holy light himself was angry, but his knights were furious. If monsters could use the power to whose service they had devoted their entire lives, then what was their faith worth? Jayan immediately used his strongest ability, Sacred Hymn. For a short time, he became immune to everything that could weaken or stop him. Holy light flared around the knight. Jayan became an enormous shining wedge and crashed into the monster's formation at full speed. Gremlins, kobolds, and goblins were flung aside before they could even scream. The two-headed ogre had barely managed to stand up when the heavy sword came down on it. A single blow was enough to crush both heads. The other knights finished off the survivors. One cavalry charge destroyed more than 1,000 monsters. The survivors rushed toward the great forest of Northrend. The woman dressed in leaves ran with them, but the knights had no intention of stopping. Without slowing down, they charged after them. Lin Feng followed at an unhurried pace. Outwardly, he remained calm, but inside, he could barely contain his joy. The system continuously reported new rewards. Temporary Hero Jayan Mightwine and Holy Light Knightly Order Unit have been deployed in the territory of Northwind. Jayan has destroyed a level 2 enemy hero, the two-headed ogre. Rewards received: 2 skill scrolls, an elemental magic hut blueprint, and the ability to train elite elementalists. The next message appeared almost immediately. A goblin archer fell, and the system immediately unlocked 2 archer towers. Next, a kobold elder died, bringing Lin Feng a dark mine, 3 skill scrolls, and 2 types of miners. Rewards poured in one after another. Lin Feng was already mentally calculating the spoils when the system detected a new target. Level 4 enemy hero detected. Lust Witch, Holy Light Succubus Yaldori. Jayan flew into a rage and soon destroyed her. The reward was generous. 5 skill scrolls, an altar of corruption, 2 new troop types, and the epic inheritance of the Lust Witch. Lin Feng's smile disappeared almost immediately. Warning: Jayan Mightwine has been mortally wounded. Jayan has died. The Holy Light Knightly Order has been completely destroyed. What? Lin Feng stared at the messages in shock. What the hell? Just a moment earlier, he had been happily calculating the rewards. Now the entire knightly order lay dead somewhere deep in the forest. It was not some nameless soldier who had died, but the commander of the capital's holy knights along with the empire's finest warriors. As soon as the authorities learned of their deaths on the border of Northwind, investigators would be sent here immediately. But there was good news as well. Under the contract, the knights were considered a temporary unit of Northwind. Therefore, the system credited all their victories to Lin Feng and issued rewards for every enemy they killed. The knights had died, but they had left him rich spoils with which to develop his domain. One catastrophe and enormous starting capital. Brothers, you were still too hot-tempered. Lin Feng sighed heavily. Maybe the god of holy light likes succubi too. You shouldn't have given your lives over such a small matter. After a brief silence, he continued, But North Wind will remember your help. When my domain becomes strong enough, I'll lead an army into the great forest of Northrend, retrieve your remains, and bury you with honors. After that, Lin Feng began claiming his first reward. He immediately chose the Elementalist inheritance. Inheritance accepted. Level 1 elite class acquired, Elementalist. In the next second, the world around him changed. For the first time, Lin Feng sensed the magical energy spread through the air, as though it had always been there and he had only now opened his eyes. The Elementalist could be developed up to level 5. The epic inheritance of the lust which was stronger, but it would turn him into a woman. Therefore, the choice was obvious. Next, Lin Feng used 2 scrolls. Multicast. Magic below level 3 may activate several times in succession. Ignition fire energy sets the target on fire. The effect can stack up to 5 times. While sorting through the other rewards, Lin Feng noticed an important rule. Ordinary monsters yielded nothing. Loot dropped only from elite enemies and heroes. After mastering his new powers, he rode around the northern outpost and carefully inspected the surrounding area. That was when a plan came to him. He decided to build the Lord's estate near the outpost and then turn this place into a military fortress. From here, his army would be able to gradually seize and develop the great forest of Northrend. After making his decision, Lin Feng headed back to Frost. It was time to sign a contract with North Wind's first hero, Silver Nightsong. In the completely dark dungeon, Silver lay on the floor with her hands and feet bound, staring blankly at the ceiling. She still did not understand Lin Feng's true intentions, so she could not calm down. What kind of torture is this? Silver sighed heavily. He neither kills me nor releases me. What does that damned Baron even want? I'm so nervous. So nervous. At that moment, fingers snapped. Small clusters of fire energy flared in the air. The torches on both sides of the dungeon lit one after another. Silver turned and saw Lin Feng slowly descending the stairs. Small tongues of flame continued to leap from his fingertips. The young woman immediately began cursing inside. Show off. He irritates me so much. Why would a powerful elemental archmage pretend to be an ordinary fool? He set me up so badly. However, Silver said none of this aloud. A pitiful expression like that of a frightened puppy appeared on her face. Smiling nervously, the young woman asked cautiously, Lord Baron, you're not going to kill me anymore, are you? Not kill you. Lin Feng looked mockingly at the tall, fair-haired beauty lying in the dungeon. Not long ago, he himself had been behind bars while Silver stood outside and threatened him with torture. He had never expected their positions to reverse so quickly. Yes, don't kill me. I swear. My purity is still intact. If you don't believe me, you can check for yourself. Silver again remembered the so-called law of pardon for chastity. As she said these words, she blushed with shame. But right now, she could not care less about preserving her dignity. All right, I believe you, Lin Feng replied with a smile. The death sentence is cancelled. But tell me, Captain of the Guard Silver, what other punishments are used in North Wind? Crimes are usually punished by whipping. The number of lashes depends on the severity of the offense. My crimes carry the maximum punishment, 300 lashes. North Wind was too poor to support prisoners for years. Therefore, criminals were punished immediately and then released. In practice, there was no proper prison here. And where do the lashes usually land? Lin Feng continued questioning her. On the butt. Yes. Silver bit her lip. Her voice trembled, and she shyly lowered her head, no longer daring to look at Lin Feng. Noticing his deliberately teasing smile, the young woman finally calmed down. The important thing was that she was no longer going to be executed. As for physical pain, Silver was a sister of pain. For her, such a punishment was more of a reward. But first, we'll sign a contract. You can think of it as an agreement binding our souls. Lin Feng closed his eyes and activated the contract through the foundation installed beside the altar of heroes. Silver clearly did not like the idea, but she had no other choice. She reluctantly opened her mind and allowed the foreign power to enter it. Hero contract signed. Hero, Sister of Pain, Silver Night Song. Effects: taxes and spread of faith in the goddess of war plus 10%. Residents' happiness and quality of life decreased. Prosperity plus 100. Loyalty 1/100. Affection 1/100. Warning: a hero cannot directly harm the Lord, but may betray him if loyalty is low. I knew it. She acts like a miserable puppy on the outside, but inside, she thinks only about betrayal. Lin Feng chuckled, opened the cell door, and looked at Silver lying on the floor. Still, her attitude was perfectly understandable. He had destroyed the power of the Nightsong family, which had ruled Frost for more than 100 years, and in a single day, he had turned the local mistress of the town into a bound prisoner. It would have been strange if Silver had immediately accepted it and become loyal to him. As I promised, your life will be spared. However, that does not release you from the punishment you deserve. Lin Feng took the key and removed the iron shackles from her hands. Therefore I, the Lord of North Wind, sentence you to the maximum punishment. 300 lashes. He lightly kicked Silver in the thigh. Get up, criminal. Accept your punishment. Silver moaned softly. Her innate talent, pleasure from pain, activated unnoticed. The young woman's affection and loyalty gradually began to increase. Ow! Lin Feng became covered in sweat. Ow! The next day, Lin Feng led the exhausted Silver out of the dungeon and officially restored her to the position of captain of the city guard. He ordered the young woman to clean herself up first and then go to the guard headquarters. Silver was to gather all the Nightsong family's former subordinates, city thugs, tax collectors, and patrolmen. In the afternoon, Lin Feng planned to begin the first major operation in the territory. Looking at the tall Silver and her slightly strange gait, he nodded with satisfaction. After the punishment, he had finally managed to raise her loyalty to 30 points and her affection to 10. This class was not called Sister of Pain for nothing. Pain brought Silver pleasure, and pleasure gradually turned into loyalty. Lin Feng looked away. Nothing more serious had happened between them last night, and it was not because he had suddenly decided to pretend to be a noble person. Silver had first survived a failed hanging, then spent several hours bound on the floor of a filthy dungeon. After that, she desperately needed a bath. But there were only 2 wells in all of Frost. One was near the ruined Nightsong estate and was now buried under debris. The second was located at the opposite end of town. Obtaining enough water for bathing in the middle of the night was practically impossible. Therefore, Lin Feng decided to wait until next time. Silver had already signed the contract anyway and was not going anywhere. Sooner or later, her affection would reach its maximum, and pink hearts would begin appearing in her eyes whenever she saw Lin Feng. Around noon, Silver returned with a group of extremely unremarkable men. These were the ordinary combat units available to her: city patrolmen and tax collectors. There were 12 men in total. They did not look like elite soldiers at all. Each of them looked more like a lazy town loafer. Still, Lin Feng had not expected to see real warriors here. The population of North Wind did not even reach 500. The first residents of these lands had mainly been convicts exiled from neighboring domains. It was surprising that they had managed to survive in the wilderness at all, establish settlements, and leave descendants. Lord Baron, everyone is here, Silver reported in a sweet voice. Are we going to collect taxes? Although she spoke respectfully aloud, in her thoughts, she continued to call Lin Feng a scoundrel. However, the memory of the previous night gave her a strange feeling. The young woman's cheeks turned red again, and the toes of her long legs involuntarily turned inward. Go to the 2 fishing villages, but don't collect any taxes. Your task is to recruit temporary workers. Lin Feng handed Silver a list that included every able-bodied man from both villages. Understood. Silver took the list and casually tucked it into the front of her shirt. Button your shirt. Lin Feng frowned. Silver's clothing looked extremely sloppy. She wore only a thin button-down shirt, with her captain of the guard uniform draped over it like an admiral's coat. The loose shirt remained half unbuttoned. Its neckline looked deep. What decent young woman would dress like that? Is he already acting possessive? Mom was right, all men are the same. Silver instinctively rolled her eyes, but when she noticed Lin Feng's expression, she instantly jumped aside. Oh, Lord Baron, don't hit me. I was wrong. I shouldn't have rolled my eyes. I'm buttoning it now. Tell everyone on the list that they will be working near the northern border, at the outpost on the edge of the great forest of Northrend. They will cut down trees and quarry stone. Standing near the 2 fishing villages, Lin Feng gave instructions to Silver's subordinates. The job will last 10 days. The workers will be fed during the day, and in the evening they can return home. The pay is 20 copper coins per day. First, we'll see what can be done in 10 days. If the result is good, I'll raise the pay in the future. Go. Explain all the terms to the people in detail, and don't act like local tyrants. Lin Feng thought recruiting workers would not be difficult. 20 copper coins was considered decent pay. With that money, a person could buy an entire mountain of hot rye bread. It was certainly tastier than the stinking dried fish the locals usually ate. My lord, based on my experience as captain of the guard, you shouldn't treat them too gently, Silver suddenly whispered. Otherwise, they'll decide they don't have to take you seriously. She leaned toward Lin Feng's ear like a treacherous advisor whispering bad advice to a ruler. Especially since you're sending them to the northern outpost, Silver continued. It's a dangerous place. If you ask them nicely, no one will agree to go there. They'll agree, Lin Feng replied confidently. Just yesterday, I abolished all taxes for these villages. Besides, they won't be working for free. An ordinary fisherman doesn't earn 20 copper coins from an entire day at sea. Lin Feng was certain that he had earned the respect of the locals after yesterday's decision. Stupid aristocrat. Dumb mage. Silver sneered inwardly. Do you think North Wind is like the imperial capital? These scoundrels will teach you a good lesson very soon. She stopped arguing. Instead, a contemptuous expression appeared on her face, and the corners of her lips involuntarily curled upward. Lin Feng did not explain anything. He grabbed Silver by her soft ear, led her aside, and told her not to interfere. The young woman became even more alarmed. Why did Lin Feng immediately punish her every time she started cursing him in her thoughts? Could he really read minds? Mind mages capable of entering other people's consciousness and enslaving souls existed in this world. Perhaps Lin Feng was one of them. Silver decided to conduct a small experiment. I love my lord more than anyone in the world. I want to bear him a beautiful child. At the same time, she carefully watched Lin Feng's reaction. Nothing happened. Then Silver moved on to the second part of the test. Stupid aristocratic dog. Someday, I'll take a saw and cut off your legs. You stinking dog of the goddess of magic. Did you know that the goddess of war once beat your patron so badly that her eyes rolled back? Come here, Lin Feng suddenly said. He frowned slightly, beckoned Silver over, and grabbed her by the ear again. This time he began slowly twisting it upward. Ow, ow, ow. What the hell? Can you really read minds? Silver's legs gave way, and tears burst from her eyes. She had insulted Lin Feng so many times in her thoughts recently that she now seriously feared for her life. In reality, he had no telepathy at all. He simply was not blind. The stupid blonde had absolutely no idea how to hide her emotions. Whenever Silver insulted someone in her thoughts, she immediately began ostentatiously rolling her eyes and twisting her face in contempt. It was enough to look at her expression to roughly understand the direction of her thoughts. Lin Feng and Silver waited near the villages for almost half a day, but not a single worker appeared. Soon, real chaos broke out inside one of the settlements. Cursing, the sounds of blows, shouts, and the pounding of many feet all came from the village at once. Tongues of flame even appeared between the houses. After some time, several guards and tax collectors ran out of the village. They held their hands to their injured heads and rushed toward Lin Feng in panic. "My lord, run! The fishermen have started a revolt. They threw our men into the sea, and now they're coming for you." Lin Feng frowned. "Did you start threatening them yourselves? Did you make it clear that I'm offering pay? And that they'll be working only near the edge of the forest, not deep inside it?" "We didn't threaten anyone." The guards began speaking over one another. As soon as the fishermen heard about work near Northrend, they immediately went mad. No one even wanted to listen when we said it was only the edge. They decided that the new lord planned to send them to certain death. They also shouted that free people weren't obligated to work for an aristocrat for nothing. Both villages have already chosen a representative. He'll bring you a petition soon. Lin Feng did not reply. His face gradually became darker. After some time, a large crowd of fishermen emerged from the village. At the front was a middle-aged man holding a sheet of paper covered in writing. He handled the sale of fish between the villages and Frost and was also the only local resident who knew how to read and write. He was the one who had drawn up the petition. The fishermen surrounded Lin Feng and began demanding explanations. They asked why the new lord wanted to send them to their deaths. At the same time, no one remembered how they had thanked him for abolishing taxes just yesterday. After reading the demands, Lin Feng even laughed with outrage. "So abolishing all taxes wasn't enough for you?" He raised his eyes to the people surrounding him. "Now you demand the abolition of fees for trading spaces at Frost's Market and free stalls?" "That's right, Lord." Several young fishermen, emboldened by their numerical advantage, replied loudly. "Your people broke into the village and beat the residents. You owe us compensation. It was not for nothing that these people were the descendants of exiled criminals. Under the harsh conditions of the frontier, they had developed a truly rebellious nature." The fishermen not only dared to oppose an aristocrat, but also tried to demand additional privileges from him. If Lin Feng still lived on Earth, he might even have praised them for their courage. But now he was not an ordinary person. He was a baron and the owner of North Wind. "Fine. Since you've decided to trample on my kindness, I won't stand on ceremony anymore." Lin Feng beckoned Silver over. These people weren't even afraid of the guards and tax collectors. "That means they're no longer ordinary fishermen. We'll have to bring in the heavy artillery." Silver blinked in confusion. "What artillery?" "You are my heavy artillery. Begin." "Ha!" Silver finally understood the meaning of the order. "Oh ho ho!" The young woman's cheeks instantly flushed, and her entire body trembled with excitement. For Silver, pleasure was divided into several levels. The first included delicious food, wealth, and power. The second included her own pain and the opportunity to cause pain to others. But there was also a third, highest level. Standing in the middle of a crowd of weak opponents, mowing them down like grass, and enjoying a completely one-sided battle. For any follower of the god of war, such a battle was the greatest pleasure in life. Now Lin Feng had personally given Silver such an opportunity. The young woman nearly lost control of herself. Her loyalty and affection instantly increased by another 10 points, reaching 40 and 20, respectively. Silver slowly turned toward the fisherman. "You wild dogs dared to disrespect Lord?" Her eyes lit up with anticipation. "Take this." Silver activated her pleasure from pain talent and prepared to enjoy the battle. "Just don't break their arms or legs," Lin Feng said as he turned away. "They still have trees to cut down." A red light flashed in Silver's eyes. That afternoon, the young men from the fishing villages, with black eyes and bumps on their heads, finally began working. Under the supervision of the guards and tax collectors, they took simple axes, saws, and hoes, then began cutting down trees and quarrying stone. Nearby, a large blanket had been spread on the grass. Slices of bread lay on it beside a pitcher of sour grape wine. Silver sat on the blanket, and Lin Feng settled beside her with his head resting on her thighs. He had to admit that Silver's rounded thighs made an incredibly comfortable pillow. The young woman tore the bread into small pieces and put them into Lin Feng's mouth one after another. He chewed the next piece several times, then abruptly spat it all onto the ground. He jumped up and looked angrily at Silver. "Why is this bread so sour? Did you knead it with your feet? Do you want to be punished again?" "What? Of course not." Silver blinked her blue eyes in surprise. An extremely hurt expression appeared on her face. This time, Lin Feng really was mistaken. Silver had brought him one of the best things that could be found anywhere in Frost, real wheat bread. It was sour only because it had been stored for too long. "You're quite a scoundrel. I'm not sure you can be trusted. I'll have to check." Silver's expression showed that she was not lying. Nevertheless, Lin Feng removed the young woman's shoes and carefully examined her feet. Only after making sure there were no breadcrumbs between her toes did he finally release Silver. "All right, you've rested enough. Take your subordinates, return to Frost, and bring all the domain's food supplies here. Also bring blankets, clothing, and the other necessities. In short, move everything needed for living here." He took out 3 silver coins and handed them to Silver. "Go to the town carpenter and order furniture. Beds, tables, stools, wooden basins, and bathing barrels. From now on, the Lord's estate will be located here. After that, buy a batch of magical seeds from the store owner, then go to the miller." Silver listened to him with a gloomy expression, while inwardly, she could no longer contain her outrage. "When are you finally going to let me get close to you? Stop seeing me only as an ordinary servant. Look at me as a woman." The young woman had already accepted that she would become the Baron's mistress in the future. After all, Lin Feng was young, attractive, and possessed a noble title. That option suited her perfectly well. However, Silver agreed only to be the Baron's mistress and continue holding a high position in the domain. She had absolutely no intention of becoming his subordinate, maid, and bodyguard at the same time. That would make her not a mistress, but a workhorse, servant, and hired fighter all in one. "Hurry," Lin Feng ordered. "If you don't return before dark, you'll be punished again." "Then I definitely won't hurry, old dog." Silver's cheeks instantly turned red, and a satisfied smile appeared on her face. But then the young woman noticed that Lin Feng did not react to her thoughts in any way. What? He didn't hear anything this time? So he can't read minds after all. But there's definitely some kind of pattern. What is it? After sending Silver to carry out his orders, Lin Feng began constructing the future estate. When establishing a settlement near the forest of Northrend, the main issue was not the availability of water and food. The size and luxury of the master's house could also wait. The first thing they needed was a reliable wall. The Lord system had already unlocked the design for a simple fortification. Wooden wall. Every 33 feet requires 10 units of wood. Additional wood increases the wall's height and thickness. Lin Feng decided to surround the old outpost with a wooden wall, creating a protected area with a radius of 164 feet. This place was to become the inner section of the future estate. The fortifications could be expanded if necessary. Construction of 984 feet of wooden wall selected. Cost: 300 units of wood. Estimated construction time: 3 hours. Use 1 instant construction opportunity? No. After confirmation, translucent human figures appeared from the Lord's foundation. The spirits began building the wall along the line Lin Feng had designated. At the same time, the wood cut by the fisherman began rapidly disappearing from storage. Then he opened the design for the estate itself. Level 1 Lord's Estate. Required materials: 1,000 units of stone and 1,000 units of wood. Layout: 3 floors above ground. A basement, 16 rooms, and 3 living rooms. There aren't enough materials. Work faster. Lin Feng created a small fireball and threw it toward the lumberjacks like an ordinary grenade. The cluster of fire exploded near several workers who had been loafing around and made them jump in fear. The old outpost hut had already been dismantled. If they failed to gather enough materials before nightfall, Lin Feng would have to sleep out in the open. Lin Feng continued studying the available designs. The next building is the Magic Archer Tower. An excellent thing. It can automatically fire magical arrows. But the joy quickly disappeared from his face. Construction requires surveillance magic and a constant supply of enchanted arrows. Lin Feng was now an elementalist and could create elemental magic arrows. If he built such a tower, North Wind's safety during its early stage would increase significantly. However, he still lacked the most important component, a surveillance spell. When I have free time, I need to visit Dragon Eagle City and hire an alchemist. Lin Feng quickly made his decision. An alchemist was a versatile specialist who was indispensable when developing a new domain. An alchemist could smelt or create various magical formations, brew potions, and even help with farming, animal husbandry, and medicine. Once an alchemist arrived, obtaining surveillance magic would not be difficult. In addition, Lin Feng would be able to build almost half of the special structures available to him. Dragon Eagle District was the largest and wealthiest populated area on the empire's northern border. Farther north lay 3 poor counties and more than 10 estates belonging to minor nobles. Beyond them began a wasteland where even a dog would not want to go. And only beyond that wasteland lay North Wind, which belonged to Baron Lin Feng. He continued walking inside the wooden wall under construction and planning the locations of future buildings. Despite its name, the Lord's estate was not supposed to be a luxurious palace, but a combination of a large farm and a military fortress. That was what the domains of most minor aristocrats of this era looked like. They spent years sitting in fortified estates, collecting taxes, keeping servants and serfs, and feeling like local emperors. Free residents were protected by imperial law. If a lord wanted to force them to work, he was required to pay them. Lin Feng looked at the young fisherman rapidly gathering materials and nodded with satisfaction. Young and strong men really do work quickly. If they keep up this pace, we'll gather enough materials before dark. Then Lin Feng would be able to use one instant construction opportunity and immediately receive a completed estate. And the fisherman's pay can be raised to 30 copper coins a day. I need to motivate them a little. Their help will be useful again in the future. Looking at the rapidly increasing stockpile of wood, Lin Feng decided to forget about the conflict that had occurred that morning and try to improve relations with his subjects. 30 copper coins a day was considered enormous pay in North Wind. No other local ruler would pay so generously. The young fisherman would surely be endlessly grateful to him. At that moment, an enraged male shout came from beyond the wooden wall. "Lin Feng, you bastard! What's happening?" Lin Feng turned around in confusion and saw a young man covered in blood from head to toe run into the fortification through the wooden gate. He immediately grabbed Lin Feng by the collar and began shaking him with all his strength. "Aristocratic dog! Give me back my sister! You'll answer for her life!" The lumberjacks and stonemasons poured in through the wall after him. "It's over! We're all finished! I told you this stupid lord would get us killed!" Lin Feng paid no attention to the panicked crowd. He quickly climbed the outpost's observation tower and looked toward the forest. Several human bodies lay at the boundary between the plain and the trees. Arrows protruded from them. Several pale-skinned goblins mounted on small wild boars raced rapidly among the fleeing people. One rider picked up speed and pierced a man straight through with a bone spear. An entire crowd of small green-skinned monsters ran out of the forest behind him. Among them were goblin archers, stone throwers, and warriors with enormous clubs. They began dragging the human bodies toward the forest. Some tore large pieces of flesh from the dead on the spot and greedily devoured them. The blood-covered man's sister was still alive. The leader of the pale-skinned goblins threw a rope around her and dragged the young woman across the ground. Sharp stones and branches covered her body with numerous wounds. The young woman looked very young. She was still pressing a small cloth bundle to her chest. Pieces of black bread fell from it onto the ground. She had probably come to bring food to her brother while he worked. One look was enough for Lin Feng to understand what had happened. The noise from the tree cutting had attracted the attention of a goblin tribe living on the edge of the forest. The small monsters had quietly crept up to the workers and hidden in the tall grass. First, they fired several volleys of arrows, then the riders on wild boars attacked. Caught by surprise, the lumberjacks were unable to resist and fled. "It's over!" the people inside the fortification shouted. "There are several hundred green-skinned monsters out there, along with some pale creatures that can use magic. We won't have time to escape. This is all because of you, damned aristocrat. You were told so many times that this forest is forbidden territory. We're going to die anyway. Let's at least take this stupid lord with us." Overcome by despair, the fishermen began showering Lin Feng with curses. One of the men picked up a stone from the ground and threw it directly at the new lord. North Wind was considered a wild frontier land for good reason. The locals had grown up without strict authority and had almost never encountered the true power of the aristocracy. The idea of an unbridgeable gulf between a noble and a commoner had not yet taken root in their minds. In the imperial capital, no one would have dared even raise their voice at an aristocrat. When meeting a noble, ordinary people immediately lowered their heads and avoided all eye contact. "I see." Lin Feng tilted his head and let the flying stone pass him. Then he jumped down from the observation tower, grabbed the man who had thrown the stone by the throat, and lifted him off the ground. Fire flared in his palm. "Quiet!" Lin Feng swept his gaze over the now silent crowd. "Don't think abolishing taxes suddenly made me a kind person. I'm just as much of a scoundrel as the other aristocrats of the Sky Eagle Empire. I don't care about your lives at all." But then Lin Feng's voice became even louder. "However, I follow my own rules. Work for me and you get paid. Swear allegiance to me, and you get protection. And I won't spare those who oppose me." The fire in his hand suddenly intensified. The scorching elemental energy burned through the neck of the man who had thrown the stone. His body collapsed to the ground. The sight instantly silenced everyone else. The crowd slowly parted. Now no one dared even look Lin Feng in the eyes. If he had revealed from the beginning that he possessed magic, no one would have risked arguing with him. On the wild frontier, a person with a combat class inspired far more respect and fear than an ordinary aristocratic title. Only the blood-covered young man continued clutching Lin Feng's clothes. "And what did my sister do wrong?" He shouted so loudly that his voice began to break. "What did I do wrong? I honestly cut down trees for you all day, and this is what I got as a reward. Where is the protection you promised us?" "Your sister is still alive and won't die," Lin Feng replied coldly. "I already said that I protect those who serve me." He pushed the young man away with one motion and loudly ordered, "Everyone who can still move, split into 2 groups. Half of you reinforce the gates. The rest come up onto the wall with me. Faster! Move!" Then Lin Feng announced a reward. "Everyone who survives this attack will receive 100 copper coins. I'll pay 1 silver coin for every green-skinned goblin killed. You'll receive the money immediately after we return to Frost." Lin Feng understood perfectly well that the recently built wooden wall was their last defense. If the goblins broke inside or forced the people out onto the open plain, the boar riders would carry out a real massacre. In that case, it would not be only the fishermen who died. Even Lin Feng himself was not certain he could escape. The blood-covered young man made a strange sound, sank to the ground, and burst into tears. "Damn it! Pull yourself together." Lin Feng grabbed him by the clothes. "Are you going to save your sister or not?" I. The man turned pale. "My stomach is acting up, Lord. Please let me step away for a moment." He turned out to be an ordinary coward. The young man had not been afraid to attack Lin Feng, but at the sight of real monsters, he immediately lost all his courage. "Even if you shit your pants, you'll smear it on the goblins' faces afterward," Lin Feng roared. He slapped the man across the face and dragged him toward the wall. A system message appeared before Lin Feng. "Enemy elite unit detected. Kaino the Thunderer, level 1 elementalist. Skills: lightning strike, elemental vision, goblin summoning, wild bite, tough hide. Assessment. Yes, you understood correctly. Both you and this pale-skinned goblin are elementalists. Disappear. Lin Feng struck the system window with his palm, and it scattered in the air. Elementalist was one of the most common classes among wild creatures. Anyone who learned to control at least one natural element could receive this class. To develop, an elementalist needed to gradually master more and more different elements. Besides the largest pale-skinned goblin, Kaino the Thunderer, weak lightning energy was present in 3 other riders. They were not full-fledged elementalists and could not cast spells on their own. But the goblins had learned to cover their bone spears with electricity, adding a powerful discharge to every strike. And this technique proved extremely effective. When they saw a wooden wall about 16 feet tall ahead of them, the ordinary green-skinned goblins began to hesitate. They had already killed 7 or 8 people with arrows and stones. The spoils they had obtained were enough for the tribe to hold a feast. Many decided to abandon the assault, return to the forest, and begin devouring the captured bodies. But as soon as they turned around, the pale-skinned riders blocked their path. They began jabbing the green goblins with bone spears charged with electricity. After several painful shocks, the monsters turned around with shrieks and desperately rushed toward the wall. Who came up with such an effective management method? Lin Feng watched what was happening in astonishment. The pale-skinned goblins acted like overseers with enormous electric clubs. A couple of shocks, and there was not a single loafer left among their subordinates. Maybe I should implement something similar in my own domain? At that moment, the assault began. A small green-skinned goblin skillfully climbed the wooden wall. It struck a defender with a sharpened bone knife, knocked him down, and attacked its victim with savage brutality. What the hell? What a vicious creature!